Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us. This is No Soundbites Allowed, and I am your host, Michael Voss, Dragon of the Southern Tier. Happy to have you here with us. Now, if it's your first time seeing the channel, we do long-form political commentary, talking about the issues of the day, and every Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we do a live stream where we get to speak with you directly about all the issues and anything that you want to talk about. But at the moment, what we're going to talk about is what's going on with the censorship, the shadow banning, the manipulation that is going on in the news media, because this isn't new. The bias of the media is not suddenly, it may be suddenly in everyone's attention, but it's not sudden in what's been happening. It's just now it's affecting everyone instead of just conservatives, just Republicans. We're seeing it everywhere. Now, I'm pretty sure at this point, you've probably heard about what happened with Twitter and the New York Post. Just so that everyone can know exactly what we're talking about here, we saw that on Twitter, the news article came out from the New York Post about Hunter Biden and his connection to the Ukraine, the Soviet Union, the money and manipulation that also involved his father, Joe Biden, who is running for the presidency against President Trump. And that article, which shows corruption at its core in our government, in our election, was blocked by Twitter, because they said, as you can see here, we can't complete this request because this link has been identified by Twitter or our partners as being potentially harmful. Yeah, potentially harmful to the Democratic Party, potentially damaging to the Biden-Harris campaign for presidency. That's who it's damaging. We're talking about a credible United States news media company. And they're saying, oh, well, they just told a story, and you know what? This is false. Can't be true. We can't tell you about it. You don't get to know. And if you tried to put out this email, if you tried to share this link, then you would have found that on Twitter, you would have been blocked. Your account would be locked. You couldn't send it out as a direct message. Absolutely prevented. On Facebook as well, we saw more limiting and shadow banning. That's what shadow banning is. Denial of this information being given out to the public. In fact, Dave Rubin on Twitter mentioned that this is exactly what's going on, that this is shadow banning that's allowed by Twitter. As he mentioned, in the terms of service, it says they have the ability to limit distribution or visibility on any content on the service. So let's take a moment to absorb this. It is intrinsic in Twitter, in Facebook, on social media, including Google, that they can deny any content. Now, they're a private business, they can do that, but it's the way they apply that. Why are they limiting visibility, distribution of certain content and not others? Because they're supposed to be a content provider. They don't publish. They're not the ones creating the information. And that's why they get to have near monopolies. That's why the government is hands off, because they aren't publishers, except they are, or at least they are acting like they are, because they're controlling what you get to see, how you get to see it, and what happens if you try and share it. And that's a problem. Now, it's a problem mostly conservatives and Republicans have been facing, because we've been dealing with this for a long time. But it's not just our problem. It's everyone's problem. I'll give you an example of what I mean. I don't think many people saw this. I know my good friend, Reverend Dean Nelson, put this out on Facebook, and most people haven't noticed that Ice Cube, O'Shea Jackson himself, went out and he was talking to the Democratic Party and the Republican Party in the terms of the Biden campaign and the Trump campaign, and said, hey, I need to make life better for Black Americans. And I want you guys to work with me on making life better for Black Americans. And the Democrats, but Joe Biden said, hey, talk to us after the election. President Trump said, I'm working with you right now. Let me make changes right now. And that's really interesting because most people didn't get to hear about this. And the funny thing is, this is talking about entertainment. Most people pay attention to entertainment. Most people know who Ice Cube is, either because of his work as a rapper or because of him in movies. But this is politics. And suddenly, this is a story that really hasn't gotten attention, that really hasn't been spoken about. In fact, you would actually have to go over to the UK, the United Kingdom, England, to find out that, hey, Ice Cube is getting shadow banned, that he's getting limited, that they don't want other people, especially black people, to know that Ice Cube is working with the Trump campaign. Ice Cube was supposed to be going on to CNN to talk with Chris Cuomo. And what happened, as the article identifies, O'Shea Jackson, otherwise known as Ice Cube, had his article pulled. In his own words, he said, "So the powers that be canceled my interview on Cuomo Primetime tonight. I've actually been banned from CNN for a few months. So I was surprised they even asked, but it seems like they can't handle the truth." Again, we have another major media company that's denying people the opportunity to find out what's going on, to find out that this entertainer is working with the president to improve the lives of black people, whereas the Democratic Party isn't willing to do so. And much like telling people about his SCOTUS list, his Supreme Court justice picks, Biden is saying, we'll wait until after the election. Kind of like Nancy Pelosi, you have to pass the bill to find out what's in it. You have to elect Biden to find out what he's going to do. And for blacks in particular, speaking from what Ice Cube had put out there, well, you have to wait until they're elected to get something done. Except Biden has had 47 years in elected office to get something done, and he hasn't done it. And so he's saying, wait even longer. That's a really tough sell, but you're not being told about that. You had the media that's not willing to let you know. CNN said, no, we're not going to do that story. And you haven't really seen the story because it's been shadow banned, not censored. You know, they're really smart. They don't want to stop most stories. They just don't want you to hear those stories. They don't want you to find those stories. They'll put it out and then you can't find it. This way you can't say, well, it was censorship. No, we put it out there. You just didn't know how to find it because they buried it. They got rid of it. And it's not new. I mean, you can look at, if you remember just a few days ago, a lot of people may have noticed that in the Pipe Dream, which is the newspaper at Binghamton University, they, on October 8th, came out and said, hey, guess what? The federal government, the Department of Education, is in the middle of investigating Binghamton University. It was a really horrible article by Nicole Kaufman. And I'm sorry, Nicole, you have errors in this. It's a bad article. And it has been updated. They did change some of the article. And I did comment on it. And I did speak about this before. And the thing that's really upsetting about this is on October 8th, the college newspaper of Binghamton University put out a bad article. Even worse is on October 13th, the local WBNG was the first of the major news media to actually cover this story. If you can call the couple of paragraphs they put here as actually covering the story. Now, you might be familiar because we broke the story. That was October 2nd. That was the second time we talked about the story. We put it out first on Twitter on September 30th, the day that the Department of Education actually started the investigation and made it known to the public. But the news media, the major news media, waited 11 days. And it was only because of the fact that we kept pushing the story that we saw that it was picked up by any other news agency. That's the censorship that's going on. That's the way they want you to not know what's happening. And it's not new. They've been banning and hiding information from the public on a regular basis. And it upset me a whole lot. I mean, you may see, we wrote the article about this on the 13th when the major news media finally said something, talking about how it's been 14 days that it took them to finally get on a story, and they still didn't cover the story. But you think, Mike, maybe that's kind of important. Well, okay, let's go back to elections because this is important. Did you know that on October 11th, that there is an organization on Facebook right now, a group called Courier News, that is putting out fake information that is trying to manipulate the election, and they aren't Russians. They aren't Russians, but they are manipulating elections, and they're breaking the law. And they're on Facebook right now. Okay? This for-profit media company called Courier News is funded by major Democratic donors. This is according to the National Review, Tobias Hunt, and this came out on October 11th, and you can see it's been reported here by Yahoo News. And basically, this company, working under the nonprofit acronym, was founded, and its only purpose is to misinform the public about elections. In particular, an election that includes a gentleman by the name of Anthony Brindisi, who is running for the New York 22nd District, pretty much the third largest race for the House of Representatives in the nation at this time. Something like $12 million has been spent by the Democrats on that race. And part of that is coming from Courier Newsroom, and misinforming the public about what's going on. So, again, we're seeing these major news outlets like Facebook, like Twitter, like Google. They're telling you certain things sometimes, but they make it hard for you to know. And they're promoting their candidates that they like. And almost overwhelmingly, that's Democrats. We know that 2 years ago, Facebook, Twitter, Google were in front of Congress, and they were trying to explain the fact that they had algorithms that literally blocked hundreds of thousands of people from being able to be seen, to share information, including members of Congress. And they were doing it then, they're doing it now. Matter of fact, something else you may not have heard about, and this isn't just national. We see local media is doing it as well. Today, there is an article that came out. It's WIBX 950 AM, talk news radio up in the Oneida County region of New York. Today, they came out, and Anthony Brindisi, the gentleman that I just mentioned, who is getting all of this money and all of this help and this fake news from Courier Newsroom, Anthony Brindisi also received a letter that was written by several members of law enforcement, and they were highly critical of him because Anthony Brindisi is running ads saying he's a great friend, he believes in law enforcement, that he supports law enforcement, and yet he's backing bills that don't. Now, the really interesting thing about this, again, what's the media doing here? In this article where this letter, an open letter, was written to Anthony Brindisi, it was spoken about on WIBX. When in their article, they don't tell you they don't give you the article. They won't send you the letter. What they did do is they go on in that article to show all of these great things that have happened because of BLM and the riots and the protests across the nation, but they never actually tell you what did they in fact say. This is what they had to say. Law enforcement letter of concern regarding U.S. Representative Anthony Brindisi, written on October 15th, sent out to all media. By the way, if you look this up, you will not find this. This is impossible to find. WIBX, all of the major news companies in 8 counties in New York State, as well as around the country. No one has covered this. No one has printed this. I'm presenting it now because you deserve to know. And as you can read, it was dated on October 15th. To the people of New York's 22nd Congressional District, 720,000 people. And the news media didn't let them read this. We're going to have a link to this in the description in YouTube, and we're going to publish this on Facebook and YouTube, and Twitter, if they allow us to do that. But I've put it on the screen so that you can stop this and you can read this for yourself in what they have said. And it is signed by the Sheriff Police Benevolence Association, the Camden Police Benevolent Association, Fred Rubinski from Boonville Police Department, Todd Hood, Madison County Sheriff, Michael Carpinelli of the Lewis County Sheriff, Don Hilton of the Oswego County Sheriff, the New York State Troopers Police Benevolence Association, and the New York State Police Investigators Association. You think this might be kind of important? You think that this might have some impact for voters? That they would want to know that information? Because, this is kind of important. But instead of getting that, you get an interview, you get an article that doesn't show people what was actually said. And they allow Anthony Brindisi to get away. His response, his answer is basically one sentence. It's unfortunate that those individuals are believing what Tenney is telling them. That's Anthony Brindisi's response. Anthony Brindisi told Keller, the host of WIBX's morning program, again, I quote him, quote, "It's unfortunate that those individuals are believing what Tenney is selling them," end quote. Tenney happens to be Claudia Tenney, who is the opponent of Anthony Brindisi. She's a former congresswoman, and she has highlighted that Anthony Brindisi has serious issues, especially when it comes to supporting the police, as the letter states from law enforcement. And his only answer is, well, they're just believing a commercial on TV. I'm sorry, that's not an answer. That doesn't address the concerns that are being made. That's not addressing his vote for HR 7120. It doesn't address anything that Anthony Brindisi has done. And the media is hiding it from you. That's a pretty important thing. And I think that's very important that people need to know about this. Because if you look for it, here's the Google search. I'll try it right now. Open letter to Brindisi. You know what? I'll make it open letter to Anthony Brindisi, just to make sure. And what do we get? What you don't get is the actual letter. You don't get the information. Google has it blocked. News media is not telling you. They're hiding the information from you. I say all of this to bring this back together to this point. You are suffering and you are a victim. You are a victim. The public is a victim. You're a victim of shadow banning, of censorship, and of media blackouts, where they're not telling you information, or they're waiting as much as 14 days in some cases to be able to show you news that has happened, if they tell you at all. And they don't want you to share the information, and they don't want you to inform anyone. And that's terrifying to me. And yes, right now we know that we're going to see Facebook, we're going to see Twitter, we're going to see Google going before Congress next week in front of the Senate to be able to explain to them why they are banning people, why they are punishing the public, why they are manipulating the public, especially in terms of elections, like with Anthony Brindisi and in the case of President Trump and Joe Biden, the presidential election. Yeah. But this isn't new. They've been doing this. The only thing that's really new is now the general public just realized for the first time that guess what? They are blocking you. They are using you. They are manipulating you. Because the few times that someone comes out and tries to give you information that some of them don't like, they're banning it. They're blocking it. They're hiding it. They're denying you your right as an American citizen to be informed and to make a choice. They're abusing the First Amendment right that they have. That's kind of sad. I don't know. Maybe you disagree. Maybe you think that it's perfectly fine that Anthony Brindisi is going out there and that he is benefiting from an abuse of Facebook with this fake news company going out there and using you so that he can get a better vote. Maybe you think it's okay that Anthony Brindisi can benefit and have manipulation of an election because no one's going to tell you what was actually being said. That there are people who are asking him questions and he's refusing to answer those questions. Maybe you think that's okay. Maybe you think it's perfectly fine because today the news media is shadow banning predominantly conservatives and conservatives and Republicans. But as you can see, they're more than willing to block other news too. And one day they're going to come after the progressives and the Democrats and the socialists. Because if they're willing to do this to any one group, they will do it to every group. And they probably already are. Well, that's what I have to say about this. This is my thought on it. Maybe you think I'm wrong. Maybe you don't think it's a big deal. One day, I'm sure you will. I hope we don't ever have to get to that day. You have a choice, folks. Please speak up. Ask your representatives in Congress to demand that Facebook, Twitter, Google, that they don't get away with this, that they don't get to shadow ban, to censor, to deprive you of information. Please look into the information and make sure you're making your vote based on real reasons and not media manipulation. That's what I have to say. I look forward to seeing you on Sunday at 2:30 on our live stream here on YouTube. Of course, you can leave us a comment. We love that, and we love responding to you. So subscribe and like if you wish. And until Sunday, I hope you're going to be great, and I'll talk to you guys very soon. Bye-bye.